and thank you so much for joining me today for today's video, which is day 17 of Scraptember 2022, and today's prompt is to use Sequins, Nuvo or Enamel dots. So I'm using the Heidi Swapp Sun Chaser collection, and I've just pulled out my scraps, and you'll see I'm cutting strips that are between 3/4 of an inch and an inch deep, and just letting the paper guide how wide the strips are. Mostly it's from the 6x8 paper pad, but I do have a couple of 12x12 sheets that I'm cutting down here as well. And you'll see I've predominantly chosen the mustards and teal blues, and there's just one strip of pink there, and I realised that that just doesn't gel with the rest of the papers, so I get rid of that one and just use these. Now this is a picture of my mum in the middle with her sister Christine and her brother Freddie at my sister's wedding back in 2009. They don't often get together, and I really like this photo of the three of them. Mum's actually one of 8 children, and all of the others have stayed in the Birmingham region. She's the only one who moved away when she went to teach training college, and then married my dad and settled down south. And it was me who persuaded them to move up to Warrington when we were trying for a family. So we managed to persuade everybody to move up here with us. Anyway, I'm just sticking these strips down the centre of each of the strips because I want to create a faux stitching effect on them. So I've grabbed this Home Sewn Stitches stamp from Ellie's Studio, and I'm going to use my black soot Distress Oxide ink to add the stitching. I'm just using the plain running stitch stamp and sticking that onto my block, and then I'll just test it on a scrap piece of paper before I go ahead and start stamping down. And you'll see here the first strip is actually longer than the stamp, and rookie error, I didn't think to put some scrap paper underneath the end of the stamp so that it just went where I wanted it to. So you can see it's a little bit faded at the end. It's still fine, but you'll see now I grab a piece of paper and just put that paper at the end of where I want the stamp to go, so that I can stamp and then just move it out the way. So I won't make you watch me stamping all of this. I will fade out in a minute. Otherwise it would be a very boring video just watching me adding stamping the whole time. And now that's all done, I'm just bringing the photo back in to check the positioning, and then I'm going to add a matte to the photo. I didn't want to choose the paper to matte the photo on until those strips were down so that I could really see exactly how the colours were going to mesh. So first of all, onto just some plain white cardstock, and I've actually run out of my scraps now, so I'm onto full sizes. So just a small border around the edge of this photo, and then I'll trim that off, and then we'll go in and choose a 6x8 pattern paper to matte this onto. So before I choose the photo matte, I'm just going to go in with my fingernails and rough up the edges of each of these strips just to give it texture and definition. I don't like how flat they are on the page. I didn't really want to go in with my distress tool because I didn't want the white edges, but just ruffling them up like that with your nails gives a really good effect. And then I am going to just use my distress edger to distress the white edge before going in with this paper. Now you'll see me auditioning several pieces of paper before I settle on a pink gingham. just sticking it down slightly offset, and then I'm going to distress the edges again. And I really love the contrast that this pink gives. Now, because of all the texture that we've got underneath that photo, I'm actually going to use my foam pads to raise this up. So these are the 25mm square Sticks 2 foam pads that we've got on the Hey Little Magpie website. I do love these foam pads. They're really handy, much easier than using the fun foam that I was using, because these are double adhered, so no need to get the glue out. You can just stick them straight down. And of course, using my T-ruler just to check that the photo is square, especially when I've done an offset mat. I want to make sure that it's the photo that's square on the layout. So I've been through most of the embellishments in the Sun Chaser range, and the only thing that I could find that I could use on this layout were these word strips. So I'm just choosing one that says, look at the layout, Celebrate, on the left hand side, because of course it was my sister's wedding day. And then one on the right that's the definition of wonderful in the yellow colour, and that looks really nice there. You'll see me putting that down in a second. And I'm just wondering what to do for my embellishing. I know that I'm going to use Nuvo, Sequins and Enamel dots. I come in with a very old American Crafts chipboard thicker alphabet set here, and just spell out the word family. And I will go in with some Nuvo glue and stick this down properly, because the adhesive isn't great on the chipboard. I think as the page bends in the album, it doesn't adhere properly and you find these bits falling off. So it's really important to go in with your own glue when you use chipboard and just make sure it's properly stuck down. And now I'm going to do a bit of journaling just before I cover the page with loads of other bits and pieces. So just saying who it is in the photo, just in case anybody looks in the future and wonders who these strange people are. And because I didn't really have embellishments to use, I decided that I would continue on with the stamping. So I pull out some more LE Studio stamps. I think this is the currently set. I'm not quite sure. It's one that I've had for quite a while, and it says love this day. So I just repeat that a couple of times on the bottom left hand side. And then I use my water bottle and some kitchen towel just to clean it up. So just putting that back. There was nothing else on there that I really wanted to add. And next I pull out the Thankful set. And I love this set. You've probably seen me, if you watch my videos, using this quite a bit. It really is such a handy set for general layouts. So I've chosen the word family again. And I've chosen a few Distress Oxides that match the colours on here. So first of all, I'm going in with Iced Spruce, and I'll stamp that just above there. And next I go in with, I think it was Antique Linen next. Let's see. Yes, Antique Linen. Next, just quickly cleaning that off with the water. And I've got my scrap paper just to check that it looks neat and that I'm happy with the colour. And finally, Bundled Sage. There we go. And I don't bother cleaning it off because the yellow will mix nicely with the green anyway. And slightly overlapping that there. And I really like that. So next, looking at what else I can add from this sheet. And I see this little heart circle. Oh no, sorry. First of all, I see these words and it says asterisk is everything. And I think that just goes really nicely with family. So I use my black soot and stamp that underneath the stamping of the word family. Just there. Very happy with that. I don't often stamp on layouts and I really need to do it more because I love the effect that you get. Julie Taylor's brilliant at doing stamping on layouts. I need to take a leaf out of her book. So again, going in with the Bundled Sage for this heart, and then the antique linen. So once I've chosen a colour palette, I tend to stick to those palettes, tend to stick to those colours and try not to bring too many more in. So now I'm going to make my stitching look a bit more realistic by adding some loose threads at the end of the stitching line. I don't do it on every line, but more or less every other line. So just putting a hole in the card, poking the thread down and then back up the same hole, and then just sticking the loop on the back and trimming off. And then I do it at the other end. And when this is all done, it really does create quite a realistic look. So if you can't be bothered to get the sewing machine out or are at a crop and haven't got a sewing machine to hand, this is a great alternative. So as you can see, I cut a load of that out because you don't need to see me stitching back and two with thread. Hopefully that gave you the idea of what I did. And then just trimming off any that I think are a little bit too long. And that's it, and I'm really pleased with how that looks. So now I'm coming in for the prompt, starting with my enamel dots. I try and go from largest to smallest, so starting with the enamel dots, and I just go through my stash and choose any colours that I think might work with this. And then once, I think it's 2 or 3 packets that I pick from, and once they're down, I'll move down to the sequins. So there we go, the enamel dots are down, and now I'm going in with these larger cupped gold sequins, just scattering them around the page. Try not to overthink it too much, and I'll glue those down off camera. And then once those are glued down, I'm going in with these teal. It's called Teal Bling, and it's from my friend Adam at Dotty About Flair. I really love their sequins. I've got some beautiful mixes. So just, again, scattering them around, trying not to overthink it. There are 2 different sizes and 2 different tones of teal in here, so they work really nicely. And once again, I'll stick those down off camera. You don't need to watch me, but I just used my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive to glue those down. I also glued down that family title. So finally, I'm coming in with the Nuvo drops, and the first colour that I use is Dandelion Yellow. So just scattering those about the place, and then once those are down, I shall go in with Olive Branch, which is quite a nice tone to go with those bluey greens that we've got on the paper. So now that's done, the only last thing to add is my date. So using my usual trick of a tab cut using my Eco Success punch, I shall just handwrite it on because this is before my roller date stamp started in 2009. Thank you so much for joining me. Please do check the description box for everybody else who's joining along in this fabulous hop. There's a playlist for everybody, and I'll leave you with some close-ups. See you tomorrow. Bye.